What up, people? Back with Saturn Days Part 2, and this time I will be covering uh, Vampire Hunter Darkstalkers Revenge, a Japanese release from the Darkstalkers franchise for the Sega Saturn, played with the help of my action replay. Um, I would say, and this is not a review, so to speak. This is just me um playing a game, talking about the Sega Saturn, and just really giving my opinions on that, as well as the games released and the games I particularly own, and the games you know I can speak about on the Sega Saturn. Uh, Now, in Saturn Days Part One, it was a much longer video, and I kind of talked about a few things. Like I touched on Sega Sanshiro, the Japanese success of the Saturn, and just how the Saturn just kind of fell on its face due to the infamous early release of the Sega Saturn that pissed a lot of people off. Um, and all of that was an attempt for Sega to outfox the competition. And in that, Sega just kind of started nailing their own coffins slowly but surely through subsequent releases of the peripherals for the Sega Genesis, the Sega CD, and 32X, as well as the Sega CDX. All were relatively amazing ideas, and all were kind of a bit ahead of their time. It was just one, how they were implemented, two, the pricing, and three, the Sega CDX should have been released first. That's just my opinion. Anyway, um, now the Sega Saturn saw a very short lifespan after the early release in the United States, and basically the overall drop in support from Sega of America, whereas in Japan the Sega Saturn went on until 2000, basically only to usher in the Dreamcast. Like that was kind of the only reason why the Sega Saturn just kind of died, to usher in the 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 Dreamcast, and it was still going that year. Like, it was still going through '99 into 2000. You know, so I just think it's interesting, um, in terms of watching the Japanese versus American adverts for the Sega Saturn, where in the United States we got the weird floating head guy. We are 5 years away from the 21st century. What? Go away. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm already for the future. What? And then, you talk about these like attitudey, in your face type things, and it just all boiled down to Sega's aggressive marketing style, where they really just tried to say they were better than the competition in their commercials, and slightly prove it. But the proof is really in the content. The proof is really in the games that you release. And you know uh, when you burn bridges in terms of like third party support by releasing a game early, and pissing off developers who wanted to make a release title for a hot new system, when you piss off retailers for shipping them boxes of consoles early, months early than your proposed September release date on a Saturday, and just really throwing away your whole concept of like the Saturn Day, um, in order to try to get a leg up on Sony, and to try to see like if a couple months ahead will give you the advantage, where it kind of didn't. It had a negative effect. Um, all those things just kind of nailed the coffin of the Sega Saturn. And it's a shame. It's a shame because there's just so much goodness on the Sega Saturn. And I mean, like, just thinking about it, and I'm really not talking about Darkstalkers, and that's kind of how this goes. I'm talking about the Sega Saturn. I'm talking about the history. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not a huge Capcom fan. Capcom games are easier to come by, in terms of games when developing the Saturn library. I felt that the Capcom titles I have were just fairly reasonably priced, and just definitely worth a look and playthrough, and are all welcome additions in my collection. That includes Mega Man, because like I said, I'm not a huge Capcom guy, and that's just the way it is. But yeah, just in terms of just adding all those elements up and burning bridges, there was just so much potential for the Sega Saturn. There was the re-release of the coveted, or there is a port, I guess it's a port of the coveted Kojima title Snatcher. There's also Police Knots and Snatcher, both Japanese releases of those games, that did not get a US release. And I know that Police Knots is also on the PlayStation, but just imagine if Sega of America supported the Saturn as much as like Sega of Japan did, and they felt it necessary to port the titles, like all 3 Shining Force scenarios, so we actually had a complete Shining Force game, or Grandia, like a US release of Grandia for the Saturn. The possibilities are endless. Anyway, I'm just gonna wrap it up, guys, because I'm gonna continue this in the next part, and I'm just gonna say peace out.